Israel is the exception. Israel is like the Western model where you get many textbooks produced by publishers, and the Ministry of Education gives a certification for each textbook, but principals of schools essentially decide which textbooks to use. That is not the case in other countries in the Middle East. And I'll say one more thing, and that is that textbooks are political predictors. What one teaches this generation informs the behavior, the values, and the actions of society of the future, right? What you tell a child today is going to very much color their characters and their political values when they become adults, which is usually in 4, 5, 6 years after they are getting this education. So it's a short period of time. So our methodologies are derived from UNESCO standards of peace and tolerance. They are respect for the other, for the individual other, gender equality, no hate, no incitement, peacemaking as the way to resolve conflict, economic prosperity, historical accuracy, gender identity and representation, sexual orientation equality, and economic prosperity. And I'm going to unfortunately give you a lot of bad news. So first of all, I want to say there's some good news. And our research shows that our real improvements in Middle East textbooks, in the United Arab Emirates, in Morocco, in Saudi Arabia, we are seeing a taking out of problematic material and an inclusion of peaceful and tolerant material. The Israeli curriculum, I think, is a paragon of a curriculum which teaches peacemaking, which presents the other, the Palestinian other, the Arab other, in his history textbooks and civics textbooks. So Israeli children have an understanding of that other, even when they're in the middle of a conflict. But there are, unfortunately, 2 curricula which have got worse. And it is my brief to tell you about those today. So those are the Palestinian curriculum and the Iranian curriculum. So the Palestinian curriculum was totally reformed in 2016. When authorities reform textbooks, you expect improvements, right? But that did not happen with the Palestinian authorities' textbooks. They were rolled out between 2016 and 18, and we looked at that rollout with increasing, frankly, horror because of how it had become so obviously worse during this process of reform. The first thing is what is not in there. And what is not in there is the idea of peace. Peacemaking is not presented as preferred or even possible in this Palestinian curriculum, which is taught to 1.3 million children in the West Bank, in Gaza, in schools in Jerusalem, by the Palestinian Authority, by UNRWA, and by private initiatives and private schools. And the power of these textbooks, unfortunately, we have seen to such a great extent over the last few weeks. You might be aware that there were attacks, terrorist attacks, by East Jerusalem school students. 2 of them are 13 years old, one of them is 14 years old, and they are students of this curriculum. And to give you an example, 13-year-old Mohammed Ali Wat, who ambushed and shot a father and son as they were leaving synagogue on a Sabbath morning. He was an 8th grade student at the Al-Furqan Islamic School for Boys in Shuafat, in a refugee camp in Jerusalem. The word refugee camp doesn't really make sense of what is a kind of town, but that is an under definition. And he has been studying that Palestinian curriculum ever since he began school. He left a note in his school textbook saying that he wanted to die as a martyr. He wrote, "God, or victory, or martyrdom, forgive me, mother, you are going to be proud of me." And we weren't at all surprised, because all of this, all the emotion of that, we see in the Palestinian curriculum. The textbooks that he used, that Ali Wat, this 13-year-old boy, used, they incite violence, they promote the killing of Jewish Israelis, they spread anti-Semitic ideas, and they glorify jihad and martyrdom. And what is sad and fascinating is he is a representation of the first generation to have gone through 7 years of the new radical Palestinian curriculum, right? So, if we track his schooling and track the new curriculum, we are not at all surprised at that he was radicalized. The kind of radicalization starts in the first year, in year 1, when students are taught a reading exercise using the Arabic letter ha, which includes the word shahid, martyr, hajjum, which is Arabic for attack, and harab, which is run away. 6 years old, 7 years old, right? And they are being taught a letter using the word martyrdom and to attack. It is entirely a process of the Palestinian Authority's strategy of radicalizing children. But if you just look at it on its face, it is a horrifying idea that this is how 6, 7-year-olds are taught letters, are educated. He studied a reading comprehension through a story which promotes suicide bombings, in which children are told to cut the necks of enemy soldiers. And they are, in Islamic education, the kind of, the textbooks that he was studying, there's an entire chapter devoted to martyrdom. They are told it is obligatory, that they have to be involved in martyrdom to repel the enemy, and that it will bring honor, glory, and promises of entrance to paradise. So if you look at Ali Watt's note, when he says, "Mother, I am going to be a martyr and you will be proud of me," and we look at that letter, which says you have to be a martyr and it will bring honor and glory, it is a one-on-one understanding of how this curriculum has radicalized this young child, essentially. They are taught, students, to write about martyrdom. And they're also taught, by the way, that if you do not commit martyrdom, then you are weak. So there is, if you like, an idea that, and we see this in other places, for them to lead full, happy lives is weakness. Imagine telling that to any of our children. Jews, and this is the anti-Semitism element in this curriculum, are depicted as conspiratorial. They are powerful, evil, impure, pose a threat to Islam. And these are religious children who are being told that the Jews are a threat to your religion, to your prophet. It will of course radicalize them. And they're also told that they control Jews, control finance, media, politics. So old European anti-Semitic ideas in the Palestinian curriculum. And the teachers are part of this process. A teacher guide for grade 7 teaches that Jews crushed children's heads and set them on fire and threw them into wells. And Israelis are described as satanic, essentially, in a poem, Arabic language poem, calling for the liberation of what is known as the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. So, again, the direct link between what children are taught and the actions that we see on the streets is undeniable. And science is also a part of this. So Newton's second law, if any of you guys remember physics, one is taught Newton's second law by forces, right? Forces that influence objects. They are taught by using a slingshot, i.e. sacrifice yourself, make yourself against, police. So they are told to put themselves in danger through a physics exercise. A biology lesson teaches students about, the effects of violently clashing with police. And so, what does this mean? This means that every opportunity has been used by the Palestinian curriculum developers to radicalize these children. The teenagers are told that death is a right and that dying is better than living, which are Salafi ideas, by the way. They're not, if you like, classic Fatah or Palestinian national ideas. They are, they're more Hamas-like ideas. They come from Muslim thinking of the 1920s. And they're told to sacrifice their blood to eliminate the usurper, annihilate foreigners. And they're also told that if they attack boys, they get 72 brides in paradise. Girls, by the way, are told that if they want to be equal, they also need to engage in violence. And there is a terrorist who called Dalam al-Grabi, who killed 47 people, including 13 children, in a horrific attack on a bus in the 1970s. She features in the curriculum 5 times as a role model for young girls. So, an appallingly radical curriculum, which, by the way, the international community has not just paid attention to, but is appalled by. The European Parliament has passed legislation 5 times condemning the Hating the Palestinian Authority's curriculum. The United Nations Committee to Eradicate Racism and Discrimination has condemned Palestinian textbooks. Governments have cut off money to the Palestinians until they reform their textbooks. And I just need to say, UNRWA, which I'm sure you know is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees, use exactly the same curriculum, identical curriculum. So I just want to quickly get on to the Iranian curriculum because it is the other one that has got worse. So we have Impact Study just done a new report or a few months now, and it shows that the Iranian curriculum has itself become more radical, which is hard to believe because it started off pretty radical in the first place. It is preparing Iranian students for global war to achieve an Islamist, a Khomeiniist revolution, and to aid in Iranian expansionism. So how is this done? Iranian hegemony in the Middle East, students are told, is a vital goal, i.e. they are told we have to conquer other countries in the Arabian Peninsula, including Bahrain, which in the curriculum isn't even an independent state. Peace is rejected, but revolutionary war is embraced in this curriculum. And again, the glorification of violence, of jihad and martyrdom, pictures of young Iranian boys who sacrifice themselves in the Iran-Iraq war are role models for Iranian children of today. Celebration of Hassan Soleimani, who was of course, a revolutionary Guards leader who was killed. The Muslim Brotherhood, Arab proxy militias of theirs, as in Iraq, Hezbollah in Lebanon, are all praised. Anti-Semitic, of course, anti-American, of course, death to America, death to Israel. This rhetoric is central to the Iranian curriculum. And what we call imperial dreams, which we see in 1 or 2 other countries, but it's very clear with Iran, is predicated on a Persian heritage, right? So it's predicated on an empire of over 2,000 years ago. And that empire, children are told, is going to be rebirthed through Shia Islam. Of course, the Persian Empire is pre-Shia Islam, and Aryan ethnic roots. So, a extraordinarily radical curriculum, and a curriculum which is preparing young Iranians for war, essentially. You know, we are fascinated sociologically with the element of how many young Iranian people actually take this to heart, because they, as opposed to the Palestinian children who are entirely brought in to that vision of violence and of sacrifice and of attacking, we see a slightly different picture in Iran, but what we do see is the creation of if you like, a core group of young Iranians who are prepared to be part of the Khomeiniist revolution. I've got to say, by the way, the Iranian curriculum is very good pedagogically. The scientific level of education in the Iranian curriculum is very strong. So what does that mean? You're going to get highly educated and highly radical Iranian nuclear physicists, if you just want to sum it up. But listen, I'm going to stop there because I want half an hour for questions. So please, I am all yours.
Yes, May, sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Marcus, for this your analysis, and I would like to ask 2 questions. Is there anti-Semitism in the Iranian curriculum?
Yes.
The second one: what can Israel do about the the Palestinian curriculum, and what are your recommendations that Israel should do?
So, good questions. So yes, the first one is there is anti-Semitism in the Iranian curriculum. It is very clear. It is both religious-based and it is also, if you like, nationalist-based, but it's more kind of, ideological or modern. But I think the key thing for the Iranians with Israel is that, there is obviously the hatred of Israel as a Jewish state. There is the hatred of the idea that, there are Jews in the Middle East, frankly. But there is also the idea that Israel stands in resistance to Iranian hegemony. And I think this is really a key idea. This is what Iranian students are told. We have to destroy Israel because Israel is stopping us from having regional hegemony. So that's Iran. In relation to the Palestinian curriculum, I don't think Israel can do anything about the Palestinian curriculum. The Palestinian Authority is, as you know, entirely autonomous in issues of education, issues of health, and that has been the case since 2000, when the Palestinian Authority, if you like, received the Ministry of Education post-Oslo from Israel, and then changed its textbooks. In the West Bank, they were until that point studying the Egyptian curriculum, the Iranian curriculum, and in Gaza the Egyptian curriculum, to study for what's called the Tawjih, which is the graduation, the Palestinian graduation. So no, there is absolutely nothing Israel can do. I think there is a great amount that the European community that can do and the international community that can do. And I think, this would apply to Mexico as much as any other place. I think if Mexican policymakers are meeting with Palestinians, it is, clear that they need to bring up the issue of the curriculum because it is a direct impediment to the possibility of peace. There will be no peace, there will be no Israel and Palestine living side by side as long as Palestinian children are taught that there is no Israel, that there is one state, Palestine, from the river to the sea, which will be gained through violence. And so for those policymakers around the world, and Mexico is included in that, who wish to see a peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, it is absolutely predicated on the Palestinians taking out the hate, taking out the incitement, and accepting the existence of Israel and the possibility of peacemaking with Israel.
Thank you, Marcus. May, do you have any other question in this regard?
I wanted to ask if the Israeli kids are drawing doves, and the Palestinian kids are drawing whatever you said they are learning, and this is going through an escalation because it is getting worse every time. So, do you see any hope of peace between Israel and the Palestinian Authority?
So I didn't catch the first bit, May, in relation to the Israeli kids.
The Israeli kids throwing doves in there and thinking and learning about peace, really. Because we have seen the Israeli curriculum, and the Israeli curriculum is like directed to peace, is directed to a peaceful world and a peaceful Israel. So in one side we have people learning peace, and the other side the people learning war. So how is this going to
this is a really good question. Listen, yes, the Israeli curriculum, and we study it very thoroughly, and we make recommendations to the Israeli Ministry of Education when necessary. The Israeli curriculum is a curriculum which peacemaking is central to it. It starts in kindergarten in Israel and goes in a more and more sophisticated manner. Israelis can learn not just the principle of peacemaking, but they're given direct examples of peacemaking which has worked, Egypt, Jordan, peacemaking which has failed, Oslo. They are asked to think critically about why that failure occurred. But they are, essentially and most importantly, encouraged to the possibility that peacemaking is the best possible option for conflict resolution, and war is the single worst option for conflict resolution. They're also given a great deal of information about the Palestinian and the Arab other, including the Palestinian narrative. So Israeli children learn about what Palestinians call the Nakba, what they consider the disaster of 1948. In Israeli schools, Jewish children are taught, okay, this is a narrative of 1948 which we accept to be the truth. There was a partition plan in 1947. Israel was attacked by 7 Arab armies. It gained victory, and this is the land it was left with. But during this process, Palestinians inside of Israel, 800,000 left. Some fled, and it says in Israeli textbooks, in the civics textbook of the Israeli Ministry of Education, it says that some were expelled. So there is a real understanding of Israeli children and sympathy for Israeli Arabs and a Palestinian narrative, all so that there is the possibility of, an Israeli-Palestinian and greater Israeli-Arab peacemaking. There is no hope of that happening, as I said before, while the Palestinians teach the curriculum which they teach. And so I cannot see that changing, because it is a national strategy. And, and when I say national strategy, it goes to the top. It goes to the Palestinian Authority President, Abu Mazen, who has made more than one comment about how the school curriculum is part of their national identity and they are not going to change it. It goes to the Palestinian Prime Minister, Shtaya, who in a cabinet meeting said very clearly, not only are we not going to change it, but we will, sacrifice water and energy so that we can keep our curriculum. This is a absolute hard line from the Muqatta, from the Palestinian Authority's President's Office, from the Prime Minister's Office, from the Minister of Education, going downwards. And there will need to be changes in the Palestinian Authority on a fundamental level for the curriculum to change. There will need to be changes, frankly, in the Palestinian Authority from a fundamental level for there to be any possibility of peace. This is Abu Mazen, as you know, is now in, I think, the 16th year of his 4-year elected rule. And during that process, he was offered peace deals, which I think anyone would think were remarkably generous, from Camp David all the way to 2008, Prime Minister Olmert's peace deal, and then going to even 11 and 12, and Benjamin Netanyahu, having some form of discussion with the Palestinians on a peace deal. And these have been rejected. And so I live in hope, May. What can I tell you? I live in hope that all conflicts solve eventually, and that this conflict will be solved too, but there will have to be changes in the Palestinian Authority for that conflict to be solved. And they will need, most importantly, as far as my own area of research is, they will need to have in their textbooks the idea that they live next door to this country, Israel, with whom they are going to have to make peace, whether they like it or not, and given an idea of what this peace looks like, and to be told that this involves an end to violence, an end to claims of various kinds, but certainly an end to territorial claims over the 1967 lines. And so, this is, not only does this not appear in textbooks, in Palestinian textbooks, Tel Aviv is considered a Palestinian city, which was, of course, created by Jews in 1909, not to mention Haifa and other cities. So it is an entire switch in thinking which needs to happen in the Palestinian Authority.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Does someone else? Veronica, Jose, I see Fausto, Esther Shabot. Someone else want to ask a question?
Yes, I want to know How has been your involvement? You know, what do you think Impact has achieved, and how do you see the future? How do you see the international influence in trying to change this reality, which I understand is very difficult to change?
I think it's not been successful, is the bottom line. This curriculum, as I said, came online in 2016. Here we are in 2023, and pretty much no idea, no line in this curriculum has been changed. That is despite the UN, the European Union, the parliaments in Germany, in Australia, in the UK, all over Europe, asking questions, sometimes passing resolutions, condemning this curriculum. Nothing has been changed. So I would consider that, frankly, a failure. I think there is, and by the way, what we do is we produce the data. It is up to policymakers and legislators to do what they want with the data. I think that, the failure has been that the Palestinian Authority is not prepared to make the changes, and the reason for that is the centrality, the strategic centrality it sees this curriculum playing in its national identity. Now, I think there's another issue with UNRWA, which I don't know what the relationship between Mexico and UNRWA is, but UNRWA is a United Nations organization which is supported by host nations, essentially. The United States being the biggest, with something like a $400 million investment per year in UNRWA. I think UNRWA is different. I think UNRWA, because it is a United Nations organization, because it gets all its funding from the international community, I think pressure can and should be brought to bear on UNRWA to create its own curriculum for the 360,000 Palestinian children that go to UNRWA schools, which is free of hate, which is free of incitement, and which encourages an idea of a solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, which is based on peacemaking and not based on violence. And I think there is much more possibility for change. The United States State Department is very focused on this. The Congress, i.e. the House and the Senate in the United States, is very focused on this. And I think it is the United States essentially that can drive this to a greater extent than anyone else, because of the fact that $400 million is a lot of money.
Thank you so much, Marcus. Does anyone else has a question? Okay. Marcus, maybe we can... Sorry?
Would you like me to speak briefly about other curricula?
Maybe we can explore...
Paula.
Okay, sorry.
Hello, hi, thank you. I wanted to ask about how much they teach the language of the other side inside of their curriculum. I mean, on both that sides. In Israel, the Arab, and in Arab, the Palestinians, the Hebrew. Because I think it's so...
Really good question. So, in relation to the Palestinian Authority, they do not teach a word of Hebrew at all. And that is also applicable to children in Jerusalem, who are taught the Palestinian Authority's curriculum in Arabic, obviously. And despite the fact that they live in the capital of Israel, are not taught Hebrew, do not speak Hebrew. Arabic is a compulsory subject in Israeli schools up to, I believe, grade 10.
Ninth grade.
Ninth grade. Thank you. Ninth grade, exactly.
And then you choose it. Mm-hmm.
And then, right, and quite a lot of people go on to do their what's called baghut, or their matriculation in Arabic.
I'm one of them.
These are the smart kids, Tal, so there you go. And Tala, I think you agree with me that there has been criticism of the teaching of Arabic. It is literary Arabic, which is wonderful. And by the way, this is something we see all over the world. In England, they still teach French, literary French, and you can get British kids who studied French up to 18 years old and can barely speak a word of it. So the same mistake is made in a lot of countries. It's made in Israel as well, and there is a movement to teach children more colloquial spoken Arabic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Marcus, maybe we can explore some examples. I can share screen with what you just sent me this morning, if it's that works.
Okay. Sure.
You see that?
I can, but I've got something in the middle. I need to do something with.
Do you?
Sorry. I just had to move away something.
Do you want to tell me which
Okay.
page?
Right, you're bang in the middle of it all. Go to, I think, page 17, where examples start.
Okay.
Right, you've gone a bit far. There you go. Okay. Okay, so there you see the example that I mentioned about that teaching of the letter. That is the illustration of the Arabic letter being taught. If you could go down, Tal. Okay, so there is. This to me, number 2 is really, bizarre. It is teaching teaching calculus, essentially numbers. By using what is considered martyrs, but is essentially, terrorism. So, how many martyrs died in the first Intifada? How many in the second Intifada? How many martyrs have you got together? Add up 1,392 and 4,673, and it is not apples, and it's not pears, and it's not kilometers. It is essentially terrorists. Do you want to keep on going, Dad? Okay, stop, please. Oh, no, just keep on going a little bit more, sorry. Okay, so that, I did mention Dalam al-Rabi. She, and I don't want to get too graphic, but she picked up a baby and threw that baby against a wall and killed that baby among the dozens of other people that were killed in what was called the Coastal Road Massacre, which she participated in. And she is a role model for Palestinian children. Excuse me. But I think significantly, she is a role model for young girls. Young girls are essentially told you need to be like Dalam al-Rabi, not that you need to be a doctor or a lawyer or a diplomat or a journalist or a career where you can be happy and successful, but frankly, you need to kill people and then die. Do you want to carry on going? The idea, an old anti-Semitic idea of, Jews controlling the world. So there you have a hand with a Star of David, with an American hand holding a globe. An idea taken straight out of, Nazi propaganda. So that's taught in grade 11 in history. What that has to do with history is a complete mystery to me. Do you want to go down, Tal? And we're just going, scrolling through it. Yes, the example that I said of Newton's second law, there you have it, Explain the relationship between the elongation of the rubber and the tensile strength. But the message to young children is, do that, be that. Put yourself in danger, because obviously, that child is putting himself in danger by confronting the police. Keep on going. Yeah, just anti-Semitic ideas of the Zionists, control of American, we just passively is fine, you don't need to go there, of American politics. And, this is scary. Armed resistance students is a natural right and a legitimate way to resist occupation. Now, one might, consider all kinds of ways of resisting occupation as, people who consider themselves occupied, might do all over the world. However, these children are being told very, very clearly that it is only violence. It is only because what does resistance mean, essentially? Resistance mean, violent confrontation. This is the only way that we are going to gain statehood. Clearly, that is not the only way to gain statehood. Negotiation to a solution is the most achievable way. I'd be very happy, Tali, if you want to share this document.
I will share that.
Example after example. And obviously any more questions, I'm happy to ask them. I will say just a little bit more about, those positive things which are happening in curricula in the region. And none of these, by the way, have anything to do with the Abraham Accords. And people think that there is a connection. That is not so. The United Arab Emirates under its ruler, under its crown prince, who is, de facto driving forward many of the reforms in the country, Mohammed bin Ziyad, drove a reform of the curriculum in, again, 2014 to 2016, which is a curriculum which embraces the other, embraces non-Muslims, connects the prosperity of young Emiratis with peace and with tolerance. It is a remarkable curriculum. The Moroccan curriculum, which we have just reviewed, is again centered on peace and tolerance. It is centered on embrace of the other. There is a great deal of information about Moroccan Jews and the Moroccan Jewish community. The Saudis took out pretty much all the anti-Semitism in their school curriculum. And we were very happy to be able to, have worked with them on that. But they did that because they understand that the future of Saudi Arabia is a generation who are not hateful, but who are Muslims, who are conservative, who are passionate about their Saudi national identity, but who do not harbor ideas of hate towards people who are not Muslims and not Saudi, and etc. So, this is a real change going on in our region. I don't expect those changes to happen in Iran. I think the Iranian curriculum, is very, very clearly a tool to maintain the instruments of the state. It gives them enough revolutionary guards and scientists and police and clergy to, do what they're doing now, which is holding the line against what is clearly a popular women's uprising. The Palestinian curriculum is entirely different, and I think that is up to the international community to drive those changes and to make sure that, as I said, any interaction with Palestinian Authority must have conversation about the radical curriculum, which is the antithesis of the possibility of peacemaking.
Thank you, Marcus.